Today's focus in Grammar Lab 2 is compound subjects, verbs, and predicates, as well as coordinating conjunctions. Our essential questions are, how can sentences have more than one subject and verb? And what kinds of words join others together? For those that have this note page, you'll find that the slides I'm about to follow along with are linked here. As you go through the definitions and the notes, please note that marks are highlighted for you to help actually do the minimum amount of note-taking. Strongly encouraged to add additional pieces as I mention them to you. And if we have time today, let's begin the practice. Otherwise, we'll do that on tomorrow's next video. Let's begin. First, our definitions. The first definition is a coordinating conjunction. These are simple joining words, also known as fanboys. Fanboys, all capitalized, is a memory or mnemonic device to help us remember the list of these words. There's only 7 coordinating conjunctions in English. Now, coordinating means it's on the same level of importance. When you have an and, both things before and after an and are supposed to be of equal importance. Whereas a because or an except type word, those are going to be things that aren't quite equal. So fanboys in English are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. These are the only 7 words in English that are coordinating conjunctions, the only ones we're focusing on today. Of these, the first one, the for, actually is a little bit problematic because the for in modern English we use almost exclusively as a different part of speech called a preposition. When we say, I bought that for you, did that for her. Well, that use of for, it has to do with relationship or position. So we don't mean it as a conjunction. For as a coordinating conjunction is similar to the meaning of because, which is not what we do in current or modern English. So for our purposes, it's on the list, but we're not going to really pay attention to it as a coordinating conjunction. But it's technically one of these 7. We're going to focus on and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Reminder to you, never, ever, never, ever, never start a sentence with and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. They'll be fragments. When you master your skills as a writer, then perhaps your teachers will allow you to use them. For now, don't ever start a sentence with one of those words. Other definitions. Compound subject is 2 or more subjects joined by a coordinated conjunction. A compound verb is 2 or more verbs joined by a coordinated conjunction. Compound predicate is 2 or more predicates, which is we're going to define as verbs plus describing words. These are joined by a coordinated conjunction. Notice how these 3 definitions are parallel. We can actually understand what the word compound means by seeing the words that are the same in each of these 3 definitions. Compound means 2 or more of something joined by a coordinated conjunction. So if I have 2 subjects with the fanboys between them, it's a compound subject. 2 verbs with a coordinated conjunction between them, I have a compound verb. If I have 2 predicates, likewise, coordinated conjunction makes it a compound predicate. You'll see that we're building what we learned last time around looking at subjects, verbs, and predicates, and now we're going to look at when we have more than one in a sentence, and also learn about conjunctions. How do we find these? First, we're always going to find and highlight the verb. As you've heard me say many times before, because you find one doesn't mean you're done. So we find the verb, we're going to find every single verb in a sentence. That's linking verbs and action verbs. Next, we're going to find all simple subjects. We're going to look for more than one of those as well. Because we find one doesn't mean we're done. Again, it's a life lesson. It's not just about grammar. When we do find a simple subject, we're going to underline and label that with an SS for simple subject. Next, we're going to find all coordinated conjunctions. Now, of all the coordinated conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, the one we use most often is and. Well, if we're looking for symbols to represent things, CC will not be specific enough or unique enough in grammar, so we can't use that. But if we look at the word and, in math, we use a symbol for and. Right, it's a plus sign. So we're going to use a plus sign to label our coordinated conjunctions so we know when we have them. This will be really helpful when we start breaking down our sentences so we can figure out what's there, especially as we become a better writer. Once we found those things, then we're going to determine whether the conjunctions are joining subjects, verbs, or predicates. How do we know? Well, If that fanboys, that conjunction is between two subjects, then it's a compound subject. If the fanboys is between two verbs, compound verb. Fanboys is between two predicates. Yep, compound predicate. So some examples. D'Artagnan and Aramis chased the Countess de Winter. These are characters from the Three Musketeers, if you didn't know. You don't have to know how to pronounce the names or even how to spell them. We start with what we know first. What's the verb in the sentence? Do you see any actions? Yep, it's chased. Chased is definitely an action verb. I don't see any other verbs in a sentence, so I'm going to ask who chased. Well, we have two names there. Again, can't pronounce them, but I can copy them down. D'Artagnan, Aramis. Notice the and didn't chase anyone, so and's not a subject. It's part of the subject, it's just not the subject itself. So where do we find the fanboys? Well, it's between the two subjects. If we have a fanboys between two subjects, that's a compound subject. Next example. Sophia and Selena walked and talked down to lunch. That's the verb. Walked. It's another verb. Yeah, talked. Who walked? Who talked? Sophia and Selena both walked and talked. So again, we've got two verbs, two subjects. Fanboys. We see fanboys between the two subjects, fanboys between the two verbs, which means we're going to have compound subject and compound verb. You can have both of these. Because you find one thing that's compound, it also doesn't mean you're done. Third example. I wanted to stay at school but had to leave for the summer. A little more complicated if we ask what the verbs are. Take a moment. Words that come up first when I ask these in class out loud, I get words like stay and leave. Great. Keep going. What other verbs do you see? Wanted is a verb, yep. And had is a verb. Might be on your list of linking verbs, but had is a verb. So if we do the verbs, we have wanted to stay and had to leave. We'll talk about why those are in parentheses later on, but the wanted to stay is definitely a verb phrase. Had to leave is definitely a verb phrase together. We'll talk about that more when we discuss infinitives. That's not today's term. Who wanted to stay? Who had to leave? Looks like it's just I. I wanted to stay and I had to leave. Now notice, I is only written once. So there's a good question. What do we do with that? Well, you have two predicates because wanted to stay at school, that's a verb plus more words. Had to leave for the summer, verb plus more words. That's the definition of predicate, verb plus extra words that finish the thought. So we have fanboys but. It's not just and, it's but. So we have two predicates, so that makes it a compound predicate. There's only one subject I, so it can't be a compound subject. There's only one of them. All right, let's talk about some punctuation here. Many students are oftentimes wondering, do we need to put a comma in that sentence? I wanted to stay at school but had to leave for the summer. I'm going to guess a number of folks listening right now aren't sure. Well, in this sentence, it's correctly punctuated. There's no comma before the but in the sentence. Reason is because there's no new subject in the sentence to go with the verb had. Now, one reason we have that comma, fanboys, is that could replace a period. I wanted to stay at school, period. That could be a complete sentence, yep. But had to leave for the summer, that's not a complete sentence. So if I have a comma, but, comma, fanboys, I should be able to take that out, put a period, and I have two sentences. It doesn't work. If it's I wanted to stay at school, but I had to leave for the summer. If I was in there twice, sure, we could put a comma. Or if I wanted to stay at school, but my teachers made me leave for the summer, then I would definitely put a comma before the but, before fanboys. I wanted to stay at school, complete sentence. My teachers made me leave for the summer, period. Complete sentence. We can always replace that period between sentences with a comma and fanboys, provided there's sentences on both sides. Comma is always needed if there's each subject and verb are paired together. This is actually an example of a compound sentence. That's enough notes for today. We'll pick it up with our next video talking about how to practice finding these things in sentences.